Hey everybody, welcome to the Bourbon Note. I'm Greg.
I'm Ben.
And today we're drinking bourbon. All right, Ben, I have a question for you.
All right, hit me.
Occasionally you meet someone who's interested in bourbon, don't know much about it, they want to get started in either tasting or collecting. Where do they start?
Okay, so we're going to do kind of a top 5 bourbons for beginners. And it's mainly for, it doesn't necessarily mean that any of these have to be someone's first taste of whiskey, but they've decided they want to get into kind of expanding. They've had a couple of things, decided they like it, and they want to try some new things, but they go to the liquor store and it's a little bit overwhelming because there's so many choices.
Totally.
So we decided to come up with a top 5 list, and now we each came up with our own list, and then to just make it a little bit more fun, I don't know what Greg's list is, and he doesn't know mine. We each have a box off camera, that has 5 bottles in it. So this is going to be, we're going to learn each other's list as we go here. So we did some parameters, some caveats. We kept it under 100 proof, since it's for more of a beginner. Less than $30. Also, kind of, when you're first getting into stuff, you don't want to spend a ton of money on a bottle that you may or may not like.
May not like,
Yeah. And then readily available. So nothing allocated or hard to find.
Super hard to find. And that's going to be regional. We are in Minnesota, and the things that we can find is different than what some people in other parts of the country / world find.
Yep. All right. So doing this, trying to pick 5, how did that go for you?
So you gave me the assignment about a week ago.
I like that assignment.
You need to pick 5 bourbons, and I thought, okay, that's pretty easy. But less than $30-ish and less than 100 proof turned out to be harder than I thought.
Right.
And there was a point today when I didn't think I had 5 bourbons.
Like in the collection.
In the collection,
that you could bring.
Yeah, the truth is I have a pretty decent, I have a moderate-sized bourbon collection.
Yeah, it's a good-sized collection, for sure.
But I definitely like 100 proof bourbons, and so I was struggling a bit.
Yeah.
But then I discovered a couple, and so...
And that's the thing. It's like when you get further into having a collection or get further into just really enjoying bourbon, you get more into those higher proof things. But I kind of remembered the reason I want to do less than 100 proof is I remember when I first started drinking bourbon, going up to 100 proof, like the first time I had Wild Turkey 101, it was aggressive to me. And now it's not aggressive at all. And it's a wonderful bourbon.
Yeah.
And now, I love cask strength stuff. I really like the high proof stuff. But just thinking back to when I first got into it, going from like an 86 or a 90 proof up above 100 was, like you said, it's kind of a punch in the mouth a little bit because it's a jump up.
Yep.
So that's why I want to just kind of think back to like when I was first going out and buying whiskey, what I wish somebody would have told me.
Yeah. And in fact, one of these bourbons was the 3rd bourbon I bought.
Really?
And I hated it.
Well, now I'm interested. Maybe we should get into this.
Because, so let's get into it. And then I'll circle back around on that story.
Okay. Well, why don't you pick your first? By the way, these are not in order of favorite to least favorite, right? I'm just going to pick them randomly out of the thing.
Pick them randomly, and I just want to make sure I get the first pick of the good ones. All right, first up.
Evan Williams Black Label. All right.
So the story here...
Is this the one that when you first had it, you hated it?
It is not. So I do have notes.
Okay.
This is a Heaven Hill product, 86 proof, $13 here in Minnesota. And for the longest time, I've been collecting bourbons for 3 years. I ignored it.
So you bought this when you were well into collecting bourbon and already drinking.
So him, mentioned he's a big Evan Williams fan.
I do like Evan Williams products, yep.
And I had ignored them. They were too bottom shelf, and I just totally ignored them. And then I had one and thought, wow, this is okay. Then I had another one. And so then I circled back around to their basic 86 proof. I really, really like it. Yeah.
It's an easy one to drink. It's not overly complex. It is a budget bourbon.
It is.
But it's really, if you're new to bourbon and you are overlooking something like this, because a lot of people start out with the Jim Beam White Label, and I'm not going to say Jack Daniel's is a bourbon. It's a Tennessee whiskey, and I'm not poking that hornet's nest. But a lot of times it's either Jim Beam White Label or Jack Daniel's.
Yep, totally
And some
agree.
people also start out with some Evan Williams, but some people also ignore it because it almost seems like it's a little bit more of the budget of those three.
Definitely.
And yeah, that's a good choice. I do not have that one in my list.
Oh, wow.
But for my first bottle,
I
know
knew,
where I'm going with
I
this.
knew.
So we know each other well enough. I did not know you were going to pick that, to be honest.
I thought that would be a surprise.
We know each other well enough that I probably know a few of his and he knows a few of mine. So you know where I'm going with this.
I don't know if it'll be first, but...
We'll do it first since it's in the same
Yep.
family. This is Evan Williams Single Barrel. So this is a single barrel version of Evan Williams. And if you're new to bourbon, a single barrel is... when they make a mass-produced product like Evan Williams or any of the main releases, they take hundreds and even, for big releases, thousands of barrels, and they blend them all together to get a flavor profile that's consistent. Different placement in the warehouse for a barrel, a different floor in the warehouse, different warehouse altogether.
Totally.
All is going to make each barrel taste different. And so to make Evan Williams Black Label always tastes like Evan Williams Black Label. They blend together thousands of barrels, and it kind of evens that profile out. So a single barrel is where they just take one particular barrel, they bottle it up, and that's that release. So, for example, on this one they have the date information. This was barreled on January 5th, 2011, and bottled on October 14th, 2019.
Nice.
And that one barrel of whiskey made one release. Now they have a bunch of different releases, a bunch of different...
They sell a lot of those, but to be honest, they actually taste a little different.
They do.
It's the same company making the bourbon, so they're similar, but...
Yeah, it's within the same family, but each one, and even from bottle to bottle in this, not just between these two, these can taste different. This one jumps up to 86 proof. Is that one at 80 or 86?
It is 86.
It is. Okay, so 86.6 proof here. So it's not a jump up in proof so much, but it's kind of like it would be interesting to have a pairing of these two and kind of see the difference between the single barrel and the main release because you're going to get some different qualities and stuff out of a single barrel. And each bottle is going to be different, but I've consistently been
It's a
impressed.
really good choice.
Yeah. Yep, and it's about $26. So, yeah, good choice.
Good choice.
I like how we've started out here. We got a couple of Evan Williams products.
All right, next up is, what's my number 2?
So you do have these in an order. Are these like worst to first or first
to
worst?
They're just...
I was waiting for this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I thought for
that...
sure you'd have it on there.
Oh.
Great choice.
So, the specs on this is 1792, small batch. This is a Barton Distillery product. $30 is what I paid for it. 93.7 proof. The story
kind of jumping up a little bit in proof.
A little bit of proof, a little bit of price. This is the first higher rye. It's kind of a medium high rye mash bill. But it's the first time I really liked a higher rye bourbon. At the beginning, I bought some, including one I'm about to mention, that was higher rye, and I decided I am not a high rye guy. And it took a while.
High rye can be, when you're first getting into it, a high rye bourbon is going to have more of a spice, and it's a little bit more of aggressive flavor notes. Like a low rye or even a wheated bourbon, it's going to have that sweet, kind of rounded out, and they can still be aggressive, but the high rye definitely has a punch to it that's noticeable when you're first getting into it.
All right.
So I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted. Did you have any more to say on this particular bottle? What was the one that you bought that was a little too high rye that you didn't like?
We'll get to it.
Do you have it with you?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's my fourth pick or whatever it is.
All right. Sounds good. Okay.
Right,
so
your next choice.
For my next choice, I am going to go with, let's go with this one here.
I almost picked it, but I knew you would, so I didn't have to.
Yeah, so we tried to not make our list based too much on what each other might have, but you can't help it. So this is Old Forester 86. This is a Brown-Forman product. Brown-Forman makes Jack Daniels, they own Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, Old Forester line. So this is the base model in the Old Forester line, which has a whole bunch of options.
Definitely.
This is 86 proof, and it's just a good, it's got its own flavor to it for sure. It definitely that's another, kind of way I went about picking this list is trying to find ones that you could put 5 of them out there and get something different from each 5.
And I kind of had the same approach.
Yeah, and you definitely have that
So
going
I
with those
have Heaven
two,
Hill
for sure.
and a Barton, and it'll continue to,
Yep.
I will spread out the range.
Yeah, and I've got a couple in my list that a couple from the same distillery.
Me too.
But you definitely, and there are similarities within bourbons from one distillery. A lot of times distilleries can have, noticeable kind of trademark flavor notes.
Yeah.
But this one I like this one just because it's kind of got a nice, deep, rich flavor. It's about $22 a bottle, maybe 25 depending on where you're at.
Yep.
Definitely reasonably priced, but from this to this, noticeable contrast.
Yeah, definitely
in flavor.
Yep.
So something that won't break the bank, and it's just one more avenue of just kind of a different flavor note that you can explore and see, kind of what you like.
Yeah.
Or maybe you like all of them, and then you
then you build a
and
collection.
then this is what happens. All right. So what do you have next?
Next up, I should ask you what you think that is next.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, you know what? This was our thing. We've got a double up here.
All right, so
We
go ahead and
do.
bring it out.
So I also have a Larceny. Does this go right here?
Yeah,
there we go.
There.
So I also have Larceny. I'm kind of surprised you have this one.
So 3 years ago, I did my first bourbon tasting, and I invited some people over, and we did a blind tasting. We had 9 bourbons, and a couple were whiskeys. We had 9 whiskeys out, and you knew the 9 bottles, but you didn't know what you were drinking in little samplers.
Whiskey, to clarify, meaning that it was a whiskey, but not specifically a bourbon.
So there was 1 Canadian, there were 2 American whiskeys, and the rest were bourbons. And everybody chose their own. There wasn't an overall winner. It was just whatever one you liked. It was just for fun. And this was my winner.
Really?
Which was a surprise. That it was a gift given me that day by my wife. And I'd never heard of Larceny. Didn't really know what a weeder was.
Yep.
But
we should probably mention that. So a weeded bourbon, that's what Larceny is. Larceny is also a Heaven Hill product.
It is.
It's a 92 proof, if I remember.
It is 92 proof, and it is $22 or so.
Yeah. It's always less than 25. It's usually around that 22. So again, just a great price point. You're not breaking the bank. So a weeded bourbon is a typical, quotes, typical bourbon mash bill is going to be corn, rye, and malted barley. Overwhelmingly corn, small portion of rye.
Yep.
Sometimes a little bit bigger, depending if it's a high rye, and then malted barley. They replace the rye with wheat, so no rye, and then they replace it with wheat, and that gives it a sweeter, kind of a little
smoother.
Yeah, I mean,
it still has a spice and a burn, but it's different.
Yeah. You and I have talked before in having some of the, some different wheated flights that we've done.
Yep.
That you maybe expect because it's wheated, it's not going to have a spice because it doesn't have rye in it, but it does definitely have its own little spice.
Agreed.
But wheated bourbons are definitely, they've got that sweeter note. That's what their kind of trademark note is. Mm-hmm. So yeah, good one. So we've matched up on this one. Like I said, I'm kind of surprised. I didn't expect you to have this one. All right, so I burned one of my bottles here.
Yep.
So now I've got 2 more. Yeah, you probably know what my next 2 are, right?
Well, I'm nervous because I actually have written on page 2, Ben will pick.
Oh, okay.
And I got your first one.
Did you have Elijah Craig on there?
It was, and I removed it from my list.
Because as your list of what I would pick, or you removed it because you thought I'd pick it?
It was on my list.
Oh, okay.
But to be honest, my price was $33.
Really?
And I may have overpaid.
Yeah, you did a little bit. I mean, locally it's around 30.
Yeah.
A lot of places I see this for about $25.
Yeah.
So this one, if you're noticing the bottle looks, if you are a whiskey drinker, a bourbon drinker, and you're looking at this bottle, this is not the regular Elijah Craig small batch. I mean for this to be the regular Elijah Craig small batch. This is a store pick.
Oh, gotcha.
So just ignore that. But so Elijah Craig small batch, 94. Mm-hmm. Yep, 94 proof. This is also a Heaven Hill product, so I've got 3 of those on here. But this one, at Sam's Club right now, you can get this for $18.99, which is ridiculous. I mean, you can't compare normal liquor store prices to Sam's Club, but usually I think I paid $25 for this, and again, this is a store pick. But this one, for me, is just consistently a nice, like I go to this one a lot as an inexpensive kind of daily pour, sort of bourbon. It's just got, it's rich, but it's not overwhelming. It's not, at the 94 proof, you're getting up closer to that 100 mark. So you're getting, when you're going from 86 to 94, you're going to notice a little bit of proof, but it's not too big of a jump. And yeah, it's just, this one I've just always liked. It's just got its own flavor to it. It's just got nice, rich notes to it. And for the price, I think you just kind of can't beat it.
Yeah, totally agree.
So, all right. So what do you have for number, you're on number 4 too.
It would be
now.
number
Okay.
4 for me. Not that. Yes, the bottle's almost empty. Sorry about that.
Well, you can tell Greg is a fan of Four Roses.
So this is the bottle I bought 3 years ago and hated it.
Okay. I was wondering so you said that you bought a high rye one and didn't like it. So I was kind of wondering if you're going to put a high rye one on the list. Since, was it too aggressive for you?
It was too aggressive.
And now you're recommending it to these poor people that are going to go out and spend their good hard-earned money.
And why is that, you ask?
Right. Why is that?
It took a while. It really took me a while to appreciate what Four Roses is doing. I've now had a few of their different expressions, and they have a couple different yeast strains, a couple different mash bills, and between all of that, I understand more of what they're doing, and I've had a ton more of the higher rye bourbons.
Yep.
And I really now appreciate and absolutely love Four Roses as a product.
Yeah. Four Roses does a lot. Like Greg said, there's a couple of, so it's 2 yeast strains.
Correct.
And how many mash bills?
5?
5.
Or maybe it's, yeah.
Or is it 5 yeast strains and 2 mash bills?
Maybe that's what it is.
That's right.
Total of 10.
Yeah. So Four Roses has that, and they do a lot of mixing and matching with those. So they've got products that have multiple different recipes.
Yeah.
And so they have products ranging from this being the base model, it runs around, $22 or something like that.
If even that, I don't remember.
I think the last time I saw it was about 22, and I think that was at a municipal store.
21. It's 80 proof.
80 proof, but it's a high rye bourbon, so this one versus this one is going to be quite a difference.
Yeah. It drinks it. You would guess it's a higher proof because of a little bit of the burn, because of the rye.
Yep, and that's where that rye spice comes in.
Yep.
So I kind of wrestled with putting a high rye one on the entry level list, and I didn't.
Yep.
Just because that can be aggressive, like the
something you need to
experience
know.
you had.
Yeah.
But knowing that going into it and then buying a bottle of it, it is a good way to kind of just explore that avenue because, well, to newcomers, it might seem a little bit aggressive. It might be right up your alley,
And it may take you a year. I took a small drink out of it and didn't touch it again for a year.
Yeah.
And slowly it took a while. Then we've done a few flights and I mixed up a few mixed drinks with it. And
Yeah, no, that's a solid pick.
now the bottle's almost gone.
Yeah. All right, so here's the last one. All right, you know what this one's going to be. You got to know what this one's going to be.
The truth of the matter is I was expecting another one and it just occurred to me that it doesn't qualify.
Oh, okay.
And so that's okay.
What were you expecting it to be?
I'll bring it up at the honorable mention section.
Okay. So this is Woodford Reserve. This is another Brown-Forman product. I have all Heaven Hill and Brown-Forman here.
I noticed that because this one was on my list too.
Yeah.
I knew that you really liked it. Yeah.
So Woodford Reserve comes in at, what is this, 90.4. So 90.4 proof. Again, it's just, and then this one kind of teeters on that $30 mark. Mm-hmm. Some places have this for a little bit more.
Sure.
A lot of places have this for about $28. Sometimes even lower than that. But usually it runs around there. So it's kind of pushing that. And in different stores it may go a couple bucks above 30, but right around that range. So this one is another one where, I recommend it as a beginner because it's an easy one to drink that has a lot of flavor to it. And that's really what I was kind of going for on all of these.
Yep.
Is while they're only divided between 2 distilleries, they all kind of have their own noticeably different
style,
flavor profile.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to pick ones that had a lot of flavor without that extra proof. Because when you proof down a bourbon, we've talked about this before, when you proof down a bourbon to get rid of some of that alcohol burn, you're also proofing down the flavor. And so these, I think, stand up to that proofing down where the flavor still comes through. This is another one that you know, if I go to somebody's house and this is what they have on their shelf, and they pour me in glasses, I'm perfectly content.
Yep.
You know, and if they pour me a 130 proof cast strength one, I'm perfectly content with that too.
Agreed. Yep.
But yeah, these are just easy. You know, most of these you can find. Well, at least definitely this one for sure. Maybe not the Evan Williams single barrel, but definitely the Black Label. Find at a bar. You know, Elijah Craig, you see that at bars.
Just about every liquor store, every bar.
Yep.
These will be available.
Yep, and they're just rich in flavor and fairly low in proof. Yep. So perfect for beginners. So that's my list.
Okay.
What do you got for your last one?
To close out, it is a 375 milliliter because truth of the matter is I never buy Maker's Mark except in the 1.75. And I didn't feel like carrying in the 1.75.
Oh, I was going to say, when you said you never buy Maker's Mark, I picked this as a weeder because I knew you were going to have Maker's Mark. And again, as much as we tried to not let each other's potential lists influence ours, I was like, well, he's going to have Maker's Mark, so I'll throw Larceny as the other weed. That's why I was surprised that you had Larceny on there as well.
So that was because I had a really good experience with it a couple years ago. Maker's Mark was the first bourbon I ever had, and it's still probably the most often bourbon I have. I use it as drink it neat. I mix it in mint juleps. It is just an easy everyday drinker. It is awesome.
Yeah.
Once you start to explore the Maker's Mark range with some of the other things that they make,
there's so much good stuff with
There's
Maker's
a
Mark.
rabbit hole to go down and have a good time.
Well, kind of like the Four Roses. They have such a deep catalog of stuff. The Maker stuff is a little more accessible than some of those rare Four Roses releases. Maker's Mark is another wheated bourbon. I think we said that, like Larceny. So that's going to replace the rye with wheat and have that sweeter kind of profile. But it still has its own little spice to it, too.
It does, yep. But I would say, while all bourbons have a little bit of a consistency, you always know when you're drinking a Maker's Mark. Like there's something unique about the flavor.
It is very unique. And it's not just that it's a wheater. Like even amongst wheated bourbons, it definitely has its own flavor profile. You know, the story is, I can't remember off the top of my head, the founder of Maker's Mark came up with the mash bill by baking 7 loaves of bread. Because he didn't want to make 7 barrels of whiskey and age them and, you know, go through that whole process to find out which recipe he wanted. So he had his wife bake 7 loaves of bread that were 7 different things, and he picked the loaf of bread he liked the best, and that's what he made his whiskey on.
Nice.
So, yeah, a little bit of history there. Cool. So we also have, so this is our 5.
Yep.
There are definitely more out there that we could have thrown on this list, but this is just, you know, these are just the ones that if one of my friends said, hey, I want to get into bourbon and I want to try a couple of different things that aren't going to overwhelm me in price or proof, I would say start out with these. Yep. We do have an honorable mention that we both kind of agreed. Yeah. If you're into bourbon, you're noticing one that's missing from this list, a reasonably priced bourbon that's less than 100 proof. And that one is,
there it is.
Don't have much left in this bottle, Buffalo Trace. And the reason,
why is it not on the bar?
Well, this has become, unfortunately, much more difficult to get recently. From what I've seen on Instagram and YouTube and things like that, I think it's been more difficult to get for a while in other places. Our local liquor store has had this consistently
on the shelf.
Yeah, and the couple of liquor stores the next towns over have had it for $22, up to $29.
Yep.
But now, unfortunately, it's
even dried up here.
Yeah. And so this one just barely kind of fell off of that readily available. So I would still say, as an honorable mention, if you do see this for less than $30, don't pay more than that for it, because I can see liquor stores starting to price gouge with this.
Definitely.
We can save this for another video, but Buffalo Trace products in general are the, you know, kind of the unicorn bottles that everybody chases down because of the different lineups that come from this distillery. And so Buffalo Trace has now gotten lumped into that. But yeah, if you see this, pick it up for sure. But we just didn't put it in our 5 because unfortunately now it's pretty much become allocated here, which is ridiculous. But there you have it. Do you have any other honorable mentions you want to talk about?
Yeah, so there was another bourbon that was in my top 5 for several hours as I was doing research today. And eventually it occurred to me, wait a minute, the name of this bourbon has 101 in it.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't qualify.
Yeah, for sure.
But I totally expected until just a couple minutes ago, it occurred to me, oh, that's why you didn't pick that.
Yeah.
There's another bourbon that is exceptional. I won't mention it because I'm sure we'll do another video on it. But it's 100 proof.
Yeah.
And we'll leave that one alone for now.
So I kind of look at this, speaking of doing another video, as like tier 1 of entry to bourbon.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll do another video that's like tier 2, or we'll get rid of that 100 proof ceiling, get rid of the $30 ceiling, and we'll do another video where it's like, okay, you've explored maybe some of these, gotten a little bit more into it, now you want to get into something
But I think we should keep it reasonable. Like, let's not go for not just a George T. Stagg. And
yeah,
Pappy.
no, I'm not going to put that on tier 2 for still readily available, but maybe just remove the proof point and the price point, and then just use our common sense and discretion.
Yeah.
So okay, let's call this tier 1 then, and then we'll make another tier 2 video, and hopefully people will continue to watch these. So, do you have anything else that you want to put in on this?
Nope. Thanks for watching. I'm Greg.
I'm Ben.
This has been the Bourbon Note.